how to start that conversation with your friend about their mental health. First, make sure you aren't too far away. Closer, closer. Whoa, too close. Now ask something open-ended like, you all good?
Are you all good?
Or is everything okay?
Is everything okay?
Well done, awkward teenage actor.
Actually, no. Thanks for asking.
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
Awkward.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of More Than Therapy, where we explore groundbreaking ideas that deepen our understanding of human behavior and healing. Once again, we're going to meet with Jim Marshall, who's going to tell us in detail about Septemics, and he's going to lead us towards a better understanding by use of his slides on this occasion. This is going to be a different type of show on this occasion, as this will primarily be Jim Marshall teaching and educating us about Septemics, especially those that found it interesting in our last episode with him a few weeks ago.
Should I go ahead? Want me to start?
Yes, please go ahead, Jim.
Okay. Well, hello, folks. I'm Jim Marshall, and I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I crafted a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics, and published it in the book, Septemics: Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. You can see there on the screen the title of the book and the logo next to it. Now, let me talk about the logo because this has meaning in it. Literally, the word Septemics means of or pertaining to seven. Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to humans occur in a sequence of 7 levels. And I have worked out what those 7 levels are across 35 axes and presented them in the book. Now, if you look at the logo, you'll see it's a 7-pointed star. One ray for each level. Also, each ray is a different color. Now, this follows the sequence of colors in the natural rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, which always occurs in the same way. And you can see it laps itself, because after you get to violet, the next color is red. And that is how Septemics works. So the logo tells you quite a bit about the subject. It's all based on natural phenomena and is very user-friendly. So the subtitle is Analysis, Prediction, and Management of Human Affairs. When you have these data, you can analyze any situation regarding people. And for most of us, that means pretty much everything we do, because almost everything we do involves people in industrialized society. Now, once you've analyzed it, you can consequently predict what's going to happen with yourself or the other person or the situation. And once you can predict, it's then easy to manage it. So this is about the analysis, prediction, and management of human affairs, which are things that most people are not good at. Okay, next page. So there are 35 Septemic scales, each of which is unique, and between them they span the spectrum of human experience. Now, 24 of them are called individual scales, meaning they help you to analyze an individual rather than a group. So let's go to the next slide. And this is the scale of basic purposes. Now, nothing could possibly be more important to know about a person than the person's basic purpose. Every human being has one of 7 basic purposes. And in most cases, this applies for the person's entire life. More than 90% of humans spend an entire life at one level of this scale. When you find your level on this scale, it is a life-changing moment, because what happens is your whole life comes into focus, you throw out the other 6 levels, and then you know what you're doing. So notice it says type linear quantum general. This is a linear scale. Now, every scale is either linear or spiral. A linear scale is what you would expect a scale to be. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A spiral scale laps on itself, but that doesn't apply here. Now, this is a quantum scale. And what that means is there's nothing between the levels. Either you're at level 1 or you're at level 2. There's no such thing as 2.2 or 1.5. Doesn't exist. And this goes into very specific technical information, which is somewhat beyond the scope of today's discussion. And this is a general scale, meaning this is not context driven. A person is at a level on the scale, period. It has nothing to do with context. Most of the scales are what I call specific scales, meaning context is necessary. In other words, if you take, for example, the scale of motivation, what's your motivation toward your wife? Well, that's one context. What's your motivation toward your son? That's a different context. But in a general scale, it's not context driven. It's true for you, and once you find it, you're done. Now, you could try to move yourself up the scale, but it's not like you're going to be able to use this more than once. So if you find, let's say, your wife's level on the scale, you're done. Now, she might want to move herself. She might want to move herself up a level, and that would be a great task. Now, notice that next to the names of the levels, the levels are called. The bottom one is not on the screen. If you could move it up, it would be shown. It's called, the bottom one is subversive, right? Subversive, criminal, going up, loser, normal, winner, leader, saint. Every human being is one of these 7 things. And obviously, these are very different from one another. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see there's a plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus next to the scale. It's kind of hard to see on the screen unless you have a big screen, but take my word, next to saint, there's a minus, and next to leader, there's a plus. This does not mean add or subtract. It doesn't mean good or bad. It means inflow or outflow. So, in this book, the symbol for inflow is minus, and the symbol for outflow is plus. So, 3 of these levels are outflow levels. The person is basically outflowing. 4 of these levels are basically inflowing. Now, from a human perspective, or you might say a psychological perspective, it makes more sense to say reach and withdraw. So outflowing is a reach and inflowing is a withdrawal. So if you are reaching toward a person, that's an outflow. If you are withdrawing from a person, that's an inflow. See, in science, in physical science, it makes more sense to say inflow, outflow. But in human science or psychology, it makes more sense to say reach and withdraw. So a saint is withdrawing. Now, the saint's purpose is transcendence. Well, transcendence is a withdrawal. He is withdrawing from the human race. That is what transcendence is. If you go all the way down to the bottom, you look at the subversive, you'll see that also is an inflow. He is pulling in destruction on himself and everything else because his intent is destruction. Now, if you go up to 6 is the criminal. This is a type of person most people understand very well. This person is outflowing onto others. He outflows with bullets, with clubs, with fists, with photographs that are used for blackmail. The criminal is outflowing. They use brass knuckles so they can outflow into your face, okay? Then you come up from that and you get the loser. Now, the loser is not a person who's doing badly, because you can do badly at any one of these levels. The loser is someone who is sabotaging himself. His purpose is suffering. Now, you're going to say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would the person want to make himself suffer? Isn't that crazy? And I say, yes, it's crazy. These levels are crazy. The closer you get to the bottom of the scale, the crazier it gets. Wanting to destroy everyone, including yourself, is as crazy as it gets. Now, when you come up to criminal, the criminal's purpose is pleasure. He wants pleasure. He has no conscience. He'll do anything to get whatever he wants. He doesn't particularly want to kill you, but he will if you get in his way. So you have the drug dealer. He's going to sell these drugs for $1 million, and he wants the money so he can buy alcohol and drugs and women and custom-made suits or whatever else he likes, haute cuisine, okay? So that is his objective, is pleasure. And because of that, he'll do anything. He doesn't necessarily want to kill you like the person at level 7, but he will. Now, at 6, we get to a person who makes himself suffer. This is the type of person, if you give him a house, he'll burn it down. If you give him a car, he'll crash it. If you give him 50 grand, he'll blow it in Vegas. That is what these people do. You probably know some of these people. Now, well-meaning people like social workers and ministers try to help these people, and they fail. They always fail, because when you try to get this person to succeed, you're opposing his most basic purpose. He's not going to let that happen. I don't know if you've ever run into this. I certainly have. I was in the helping profession, and I ran into some people that I could see they were not going to let me help them. Up from that, you get to the normal. This is the largest demographic group. 30% of all people are at this level. And the purpose of the normal is conformity. Now, you might say, well, that's not a good thing, but think of it this way. The normal wants to fit in. If everyone grows a mustache, he grows a mustache. If everyone shaves off their mustache, he shaves off his mustache. If everyone drives an SUV, he gets an SUV. If everyone stops driving SUVs and gets sedans, he'll sell the SUV and get a sedan. He wants to fit in. This person does not want to hurt anybody and is not interested in helping anybody either, except maybe himself. Then you go up to level 3 and you get the winner. The winner is on an inflow. He is inflowing wealth to himself. Now, wealth does not just mean money. Depends on the person, depends on the context. If you're a baseball player, having a World Series ring is the greatest value you can have, because you have it for the rest of your life. You can show people, I won the World Series. See, that's wealth to a baseball player. Or if you're an actor, you get an Oscar or an Emmy and you put it on your mantle. That's wealth to an actor. But of course, money is the most common one. This person is inflowing to himself. Now, up from that is the leader. The leader is down for the struggle. His goal is conquest. Now, you might say, oh, that's not a nice thing. Well, that's a question of whose ox is being gored. For example, when the Union defeated the Confederacy in 1865, that was a good conquest. It freed the blacks and it preserved the Unions, and it ended slavery. And in case you don't know, shortly thereafter, Abraham Lincoln forced through the 13th Amendment, which made slavery unconstitutional. That was all part of his effort as a leader, okay? He was determined to conquer the slave owners. If you know about the history of the Civil War, there were about 24 major plantation owners, and most of the slaves belonged to those people, those 24 families. When Sherman made his march to the sea, going through Georgia in a 20-mile wide line, he knew about this. He was determined to defeat the enemy, which was the plantation owners. They're the ones who were promoting slavery. They're the ones who were funding the war with their great wealth, which they got from the slaves. So he went through and he destroyed everything, all the crops, all the animals, poisoned the wells, burnt the houses so that they could not wage war. That has been going on for 6,000 years. That is how it's done. So he understood this. Up from the leader is the saint, which should be someone like Jesus of Nazareth or Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of Buddhism. His goal is transcendence. He's not interested in anything in the material plane. He doesn't want money. He doesn't want sex. He doesn't want notoriety. He wants to transcend. Now, the way the person explains this to you will depend on his belief system. If it's a Christian, he'll say he wants to go to heaven and become a saint or an angel. See? But if he's a Buddhist, he'll say he wants to attain nirvana. They're still transcending whatever religion they're in. Or you could even be pursuing transcendence, not belonging to any religion. There are many people now who are spiritual but not religious, who meditate frequently. So that's, as you can see, where the plus minus comes in, and it fits in perfectly with this. Now notice at level 4, there's a line there, a horizontal line at 4, and above it says social, and below it says antisocial. People at levels 5, 6, and 7 are antisocial. People at levels 1, 2, and 3 are social. People at level 4 are sort of not really either. They're sort of in a sort of a limbo there, not particularly social or antisocial. They don't want to hurt anybody and they don't want to help anybody. Now, if you go a little further over, you'll see a dotted vertical line. Now, at the top of this line, it says courage, wisdom, and ethics. And at the bottom of the line, it says fear, stupidity, and criminality. So what do you get from a saint? You get courage, wisdom, and ethics. Look at Jesus or Buddha or any one of the other great religious leaders, Moses, okay? Those are men of courage, wisdom, and ethics. And of course, it applies to women too, like Mother Teresa. And at the bottom, you have fear, stupidity, and criminality. That is what you get from people who are destructive. Pol Pot had the same basic purpose as Hitler, to destroy. Once you understand that, you can make sense out of what these people. Pol Pot murdered millions of innocent people, wrecked his country, okay? That was motivated by fear, stupidity, and criminality, which are the exact opposite of courage, wisdom, and ethics. That is the axis here. So the closer you get to the top, the more courage, wisdom, and ethics prevail. And the closer you get to the bottom, the more fear, stupidity, and criminality prevail. So somebody at level 4 is not terribly courageous, he's not terribly wise, he's not terribly ethical, but also he's not terribly fearful, and he's not terribly stupid, and he's not particularly criminal, okay? Because he's at level 4. And that is what this scale is measuring. Now, further over, you can see there's a further breakdown. Levels 1 and 2 I call superhumans. They're humans, but they have abilities that most of us will never have, no matter what we do. Levels 3, 4, and 5 are humans. This is the large majority of people. They're not superhumans, they're humans. And below that, you have subhumans, like Stalin and Hitler. They were subhumans. They did horrible, despicable things that most people would never allow if they could prevent it, let alone do it. So that's what this scale is about. Now, also it says there, if you can see it, note, this scale aligns with the scale of life spheres. See Book 2, Chapter 2. This is one of several individual individual scales that has a correlate in the group scales. So I explain this in the chapter, and if you get it, you can read it, and it tells you how they correspond. Okay, any questions, Felipe, before we go on?
No questions.
Okay, so we are now going to the next scale in the book, which is the scale of personal influence. Let me tell you what I mean by personal influence. If I were to hit you over the head with a club, I would be influencing you. But that's not what I mean by personal influence. That's violent influence. People influence people by their persons. So, the wife goes to the husband and talks him into buying her a mink stole. Okay? That's personal influence. She's influencing person to person. There are 7 levels of this. And we'll go through what they are. Now, notice this is a linear scale, as was the one we just finished. This is a quantum scale, like the one we just finished, which means there's nothing between the two. There's no such thing as halfway between level 2 and 3. You're either at 2 or you're at 3, or you're at some other level. Also, again, you have the plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. Levels 1, 3, 5, and 7 are outflows. And levels 2, 4, and 6 are inflows. This helps you because you can just observe that the person is outflowing or inflowing. Some people are obviously outflowing. And some people are obviously inflowing. So if you just spot that the person is outflowing or inflowing, you've narrowed it down right there. So, well, this guy is obviously on an outflow, which means he's either got to be at level 1, 3, 5, or 7. See, this helps you to determine the person's level. Then notice the axis at the right there. It says cause at the top and effect at the bottom. This is a scale of cause and effect. Above level 1, you have cause, and below level 7, you have effect, meaning you can never be totally at cause, although you could be very, very close. And you can never be totally at effect. Even a catatonic schizophrenic in an insane asylum is not totally at effect. He still breathes, he still eats, and he still sleeps. So there's a little tiny bit of causativeness in him, not enough for him to survive in the real world. So that's what this is. This is a scale of cause and effect. So let's go through these levels, starting at the bottom. The lowest of these is martyrdom. Martyrdom is a type of humility. You influence people by destroying yourself. This is obviously what Jesus of Nazareth did. We know him primarily as a martyr. That is why Christians, their symbol is the crucifix. They're showing that he was martyred. That is the center of their religion. And so 2,000 years later, something like 1.5 billion people are still following him. It might even be 2 billion, the numbers change. Somewhere around 2 billion people are Christians. So they're still, obviously he was very effective in doing this. That was a big outflow. He outflowed into the society by his martyrdom. Up from that is level 6, which is victimization. This goes on a lot more today than it used to. People say, oh, I'm a victim, and they manipulate you by that. Notice it says guilt next to it. They are running a guilt trip on you. Oh, poor me, I was born in a ghetto, and you should feel guilty because it's society's fault. And that's how they manipulate you into getting what they want. Clearly, this is an inflow. They're saying, give me stuff to make up for the fact that I'm a victim. This is very popular now. People who are upscale, or you might say successful, don't do that. They don't make themselves victims. They make themselves victors. They succeed. Up from that, level 5 is domination. Now, domination is a type of overwhelm. The person at this level overwhelms you. If you go on YouTube and look at Hitler's speeches, this is what he was doing. He dominated his audiences. He overwhelmed them with his rhetoric. And he managed to influence them this way. He also managed to influence them by other forms of domination, like if you don't say Sieg Heil, we'll have you killed. See, that's domination. That's clearly an outflow. His rhetoric was an outflow. All the bullets and the bombs from him were an outflow. That's what you get from somebody at this level. Up from that is level 4, aloofness. Now, an aloof person influences people by restraint. This is done more by women than by men. And in fact, it used to be done even more by women than it is today. For example, Victorian women were distinctly aloof. They went out of their way to restrain themselves. And that is how they influenced men. So you had the image of the woman with clothes up to her neck and down to her ankles, and she would drop her hanky, and the man would pick up the hanky. See, she's influencing him by aloofness. And she says, "Oh, thank you, sir, very much." That's influencing people by restraint. If you've ever known somebody like this, it's pretty clear. I knew a woman like this who was ravishingly beautiful, and she was distinctly aloof all the time. I'm sure this woman had men after her whole life, and she just didn't want to deal with it. So you got this message from her: I am not going anywhere near you. I'm restrained. I'm aloof. See, that's an inflow. That's the message she sent out. And most guys got it and just stayed away from her. Up from that was 3, reason. Reason is logic. This is what lawyers do for a living. They reason with the judge and the jury. It's what it's all about. They make an argument. They use reason. They take the facts that they have and they try to present them in a logical way that will convince people. Clearly, this is an outflow. The lawyer is outflowing his reason and his words and his rhetoric into the courtroom. But it's not only lawyers. There's all kinds of people. Politicians do this. Announcers do this. Salesmen do this. There are a lot of people who influence by reason. And you can see this is a lot saner than martyrdom. I don't recommend martyrdom because you wind up dead. When you can you influence people by reason, you're still able to stay alive. Up from that level 2 is charisma. Now, this is a mysterious thing to many people. Charisma is a leadership manifestation. And if you've ever been around somebody who has a lot of this, you can see it. JFK was distinctly charismatic, as was Elvis Presley. Okay? They had a leadership quality. And people followed them happily, gladly, because of their charisma. So that is an inflow. They draw you in. It's like a type of magnetism that they have. Some mysterious magnetism that gets you to follow them. And up from that is telepathy. Now, some people will be surprised to hear that all humans have telepathic abilities. It's a question of degree and knowledge. In other words, most people are not aware that they're telepathic. They do telepathic things, they're just not aware of it. They rationalize it some other way, or they just don't understand it at all. And telepathy is really will. You influence people by your will. So if you remember, in the original Star Wars movie, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Jedi, is in the speeder with Luke and the 2 droids, and when they get to the city, they're stopped by the soldiers who are looking for the 2 droids. And Obi-Wan says, "Sotto voce, these are not the droids we're looking for." And the sergeant says, "These are not the droids we're looking for," and waves them through. And Obi-Wan explains it later on. People with weak minds can be influenced. So that was a perfect example, although it is fictional, of telepathy at work. Will. You will people. People who are at this level can get people to do things without saying anything, without writing anything, without doing anything. The guy just decides, this girl is going to go out with me. And she does. She might not even know why. He does it by will. So that's what this scale is about. Any questions, Felipe, before we go on?
No.
Okay, go to the next one, which is chapter 3, the scale of choice. This is more important than I can possibly explain. the most important theme in human history is freedom. That is what wars are fought about. This manifests in many different ways. It's why people go to divorce court and spend millions of dollars. They want to be free. What is freedom? Freedom is the ability to choose. If you can choose, you're free. If you can't choose, you're not. So a guy in jail, he's behind bars, he can't choose to go for a walk. He can't choose to go to Walmart or go to the bank. He can't choose to just get some ice cream when he wants it. Okay? He can't choose. He's not free. So, obviously, the idea is to have as much choice as possible. And that is what this is a scale of. So, this is a spiral scale. Notice that level 1 says no choice, and level 7 says no choice. But in level 1, it's no choice necessary, and in level 7, it's no choice possible. Someone who's at level 7 has no choice because he can't possibly make a choice, because he's oblivious. An oblivious person cannot make a choice. So you say to the guy, for whom are you voting in this election? He says, election? What election? See, he's oblivious. He doesn't even know there's an election. Not only doesn't he know the candidates, he doesn't even know there's an election going on. He can't possibly make a choice because he doesn't know who the candidates are. He's at level 7. Whereas somebody at level 1, he would be in a state of no choice is necessary. He might say, well, it doesn't really matter to me who gets elected, because he's about transcendence. A person who's transcendent doesn't really care too much about what goes on in the physical world. He wants to continue his meditation or his prayer or whatever else he does that contributes to his transcendence. And so he might vote, but it's not necessary for him to vote. He doesn't see it as a necessary thing. He might say, well, yeah, I see this guy makes more sense than this guy, so I'm going to vote for him. But it's not necessary. Now, that is a spiral scale. So it's easy to mistake level 1 for level 7, and that is the biggest possible mistake you can make in Septemics, because you are mistaking the worst case for the best case. So think about Jesus, okay? He was at level 1, no choice necessary, and they saw him as being at level 7, no choice possible. See? They put him to death. So that's a spiral scale. Very easy to confuse 1 and 7. Now, let's look at, this is a quantum scale, which means there's nothing in between. You're either at level 2 or you're at level 3, period. There's no gradation. And it's a specific scale, meaning it has to have a context. This scale makes no sense without a context. So, for example, how do you choose as regards your mate? How do you choose as regards your work? How do you choose as regards your religion? How do you choose as regards your bowling team? See, these are different contexts, and you might be at different levels at these different, in fact, you probably are at different levels, because these contexts have nothing to do with one another. And so you can use this same scale to evaluate a person many times depending on his context. So let's look at the axis on the right, the dotted vertical line. At the top it says complete responsibility and freedom. Notice that is above level 1. And at the bottom, it says no freedom or responsibility. That is below level 7, because absolutes are unattainable for humans. At level 1, you are very close to complete freedom and responsibility, but it's not really complete. It's maybe 99.999%. And at the bottom, it's not that you have no freedom or responsibility, you just have very, very little. Okay, not enough to notice. And as you go up the scale, people have more freedom and more responsibility. Well, this links freedom and responsibility, you see, because you cannot be free in an area for which you are not responsible. So you have a guy, he has a child, he leaves the family, he doesn't pay any child support, he winds up getting sued and arrested for non-payment of child support. He now has a judgment against him, so he's losing his freedom. You know why? He did not take responsibility for his child. And in fact, the Supreme Court has ruled that a negligent parent who doesn't pay child support is not being jailed for monetary purposes. He's being jailed because he failed to take responsibility for his progeny, which you are required to do. And that is why it is lawful to put deadbeat dads in prison. So, next to that, in between the left and the right, it says one viewpoint, many viewpoints, one viewpoint, many viewpoints, one viewpoint. So you see, this is a particular type of inflow, outflow, inflow, outflow. Notice next to those, it has the plus and minus. So level 1 is an inflow. No choice necessary. That person is withdrawn. See, that's why he doesn't have to make a choice. He's withdrawn from it. But at somebody 2, he can make any choice. That means he's on an outflow. Any choice. That's a big outflow. You see? And it goes all the way up and down like that. Now, the one viewpoint, many viewpoint, think about this. A person at level 7 has no choice possible. Okay? That's his viewpoint, period. That's one viewpoint. That's the only viewpoint he has, that no choice is possible. Up from that, somebody at level 7, group's choice, he has many viewpoints because there are many people in the group. This is the level of collectivism. So when you're in a communist state, it's collectivist. There are many viewpoints. The People's Republic of China, right? Many viewpoints. So you don't really get to choose. It's the group's choice. Now, up from that is another's choice. This is where a specific person makes your choice for you. This is an inflow. You're withdrawn, and somebody is making the choice for you. So you have a guy who's henpecked. He comes home from work. His wife says, "Change your shirt. We're going to play cards tonight with the Joneses." He says, "Yes, dear." He changes his shirt. He is a robot to that woman. Could go the other way around too. But it could go either way. But the point is, this is what I call robotism. This person operates as someone else's choice. Now think about this. When you're in the military, you don't have a choice. If the platoon leader says, "Attention," you come to attention. And if you don't, there are dire consequences. If he says attack and you don't attack, that's mutiny. You can be executed for that. See, in the military, it's always another person's choice. And this goes all the way up to, in the United States, the commander-in-chief, which is the president, who's not even really in the military. Up from that, you have any choice but one's own. This is what we call trendy people. This is a person who makes a choice, but it's not his own choice. It's somebody else's choice. So, for example, this guy goes to an ice cream parlor, and the first guy orders chocolate, the second guy orders chocolate, the third guy orders chocolate. When it comes to him, they say, "What flavor would you like?" You know what he's going to say? Chocolate. You know why? Because everybody else does it. This is a type of irresponsibility. He's not responsible enough to make a choice. He's not responsible enough to say, "Well, you guys can have chocolate if you want, but I want vanilla." That takes some responsibility, and he doesn't have that responsibility. So there are many viewpoints, and it's the viewpoint of other people. So this is like the guy who goes to college. When he gets to college, everybody's a Democrat, so he becomes a Democrat. You know why? Any choice but one's own. He doesn't even make a choice. He just goes along with the crowd. Now, up from that is one's own choice. So we have finally gotten to the person who makes his own choice. This person is often described by the people at lower levels as being selfish. So this is the guy, you go to a Chinese restaurant, first guy orders chow mein, second guy orders chow mein, third guy orders chow mein. This guy says, I don't want chow mein, I want mogu gai pan. The other people say, what, chow mein is not good enough for you? What are you, a nonconformist? He says, no, I made my own choice. I'm going to have mogu gai pan. See, they think of him as selfish. And in a way, he is. He is literally selfish in that he is making his own decision. He knows what he wants, and that's what he asserts. That is clearly an inflow in the sense that he's withdrawn from everybody else. Okay? He's saying, well, I don't care what you guys do. I'm doing my own thing over here. I'm withdrawn. Up from that is level 2, any choice. Any choice is what aloofness is. This is the person, he just doesn't care. If the wife says, let's go for Chinese food, he says, okay. If the wife says, I don't want to go for Chinese food, he says, okay. See, he's aloof. She could say, let's go for Thai food. He'll say, okay. He's just, it could be any choice at all. Okay? So, your friend says to you, what do you want on the pizza? Say, I don't care. Put whatever you want. See, that's any choice. That's a type of aloofness. He's saying, I'm not going to get involved in deciding what's on this pizza. I'm aloof from this. So that is a type of an outflow in that he can have any choice. That's a big outflow. And up from that is no choice necessary, which is the transcendent person, and he's withdrawing into his transcendence. Any questions, Felipe?
No questions.
Okay, chapter 4, the scale of permeation. Now, some people don't know what permeation is. Permeation is the basic action of a spiritual being. If you do not understand that human beings are fundamentally spiritual beings, this scale will not make any sense to you because you have a fundamental misconception about people. Love is monitored by permeation. When you love somebody, you are permeating the person. When you hate somebody, you are not permeating the person. So think about this. Let's say there's some guy who you can't stand. He's a bully, he's a drunk, he's obnoxious. You don't want to have anything to do with this guy, right? So you're not going to permeate him. You're not permeating him. You just don't want to have anything to do with him. Now, on the other hand, let's say you have a couple that's deeply in love. They are permeating one another. There's complete permeation there. That is why there is love. So as you go up the scale, there's more permeation. And as you go down, there's less permeation. So it's a scale of permeation. So notice again, it has the plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus next to it on the right. So at level 7, must permeate. Well, that's what compulsion is. A person who's compulsive must permeate, whatever that is. This is like a guy who's obsessed with some woman. He's got photographs of her all over his apartment. He's never even met her. He doesn't know her. He doesn't even know her name, right? That's daffy. That's a big outflow. He's outflowing toward this. He's stuck on this person. It's a compulsion. Up from that, you go to unable to permeate. Now, that's what succumbing is. When you are succumbing, you are unable to permeate. You know, this is the guy who says, I've had enough, I give up. He's withdrawing. He succumbs. He's unable to permeate. So this happens in wrestling, for example. You wrestle the guy, you got him down, he can't go anywhere, He says, okay, I give up. You won. See, he's unable to permeate you. Somebody who's a better wrestler would be able to permeate you somewhat. Up from that is able to permeate. Now, able to permeate is indifference. It doesn't mean you are permeating. It just means you can. You have the ability to permeate, but you are indifferent about it. So this is an outflow because you're able to permeate. Oh yeah, I can do that. I can have that. I can have that. So you have an ability, but you're still indifferent. Now, when you go up to 4, that's unwilling to permeate. This guy says, I am not going to permeate this thing. I'm unwilling. So you say, wouldn't you like to go for dinner at my mother and father's house? He says, no way. I'm unwilling to permeate those people. They obviously hate me. See, there's an antipathy here. So he is withdrawn from that. He's unwilling to permeate. See, that's different from unable to permeate. It's not that he's unable, he's unwilling. You said, well, I could do that, but I'm not going to do it. Up from that is willing to permeate. This is what empathy is. Empathy is a willingness to permeate. So you see a stray dog and you feel empathy for him. And so you take him home when you take him to the pound or whatever. You give him a home, right? Empathy. You're willing to permeate that pet. Or you meet somebody. Hello, this is Mr. Jones. Hello, Mr. Jones. You see, you're willing to permeate Mr. Jones. There's some empathy there. Mr. Jones says, yeah, my wife died a month ago. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. See, there's some empathy there. That's an outflow. Empathy is an outflow. You are outflowing your empathy into that person. Up from that, level 2 is can permeate at will. That is what success is. Success means you can permeate at will. Anytime you want to permeate it, you can permeate it. And that is what successful people are like. And if you study them carefully, as I have, you can see this. That is a big outflow. When you say you can permeate at will, that is a very powerful outflow. So this is like a guy who's very confident about his ability to meet women and get them interested in him. You might say he's successful at dating and he can permeate them at will. So he says, oh, this is a nice lady. I'm going to permeate her. Because he can do it at will. He can turn it on or turn it off. That's what success is. Up from that is complete permeation. And complete permeation, that's power. That's what the Beatles had in the 60s. Complete permeation. They were known throughout the world. Okay? People were just crazy about them. They had this gigantic outflow of permeation. They permeated the whole world. Can permeate, I may have misspoken on this, can permeate means, yeah, I can do it, but I'm withdrawn at the moment. So complete permeation, you don't see too much of that. That's power. There probably was a point where Napoleon, at his peak, was at complete permeation. And eventually, all of the kings of Europe got together and fought him together to stop him because he was controlling all of Europe. So that's a big outflow. So any question about this, Philippe?
No questions at all.
Okay, great. So should I keep going?
Go right ahead.
Okay. The scale of thought. There are 7 levels of human thought. This is apparently a new idea. I have known about this for many decades. So many people simply cannot think at certain levels. So this is one of these things where as you go up, you sort of include the next level in it. So if a person thinks at 4, he also can think at 5, 6, and 7. Although he probably is not going to very much because he's at a higher level. So this is a linear scale. It's not a spiral. This is a quantum scale, meaning there's nothing in between. There's no such thing as halfway between. And it's specific. So people think different ways on different things. So one guy might think one way about religion and think differently about politics and be at a completely different level on his academic studies. So this is about permeation and knowledge. This is a scale of permeation and knowledge. So above level 1 is total permeation and knowledge. No human can get there, but you can get very close. And below level 7 is no permeation of knowledge. And again, absolutes are unattainable. You can get very, very close. So as you go up the scale, you have more permeation and more knowledge. So this tells you that a person who has very little knowledge is not thinking well in that area. A person who is not permeating an area is not thinking well in that area. So let's say you have a person who says, I don't want to have anything to do with Jews, get them away from me. See, he's not permeating that. He obviously has a tremendous lack of knowledge about Jews because most of them are wonderful people. So he's going to be thinking about them at one of these lower levels. So let's go through this. Level 7 is deny. That's a type of thought. So you have a guy, you know, this guy after work every day drinks a 6-pack of beer, gets drunk, falls asleep on his couch. So after a while you say to him, Joe, you think maybe you're an alcoholic? He says, oh no, I'm not an alcoholic. I can stop whenever I want. He's in denial. Okay? Anybody who gets drunk every night is an alcoholic. Okay? And what that means is he's ignoring reality. He cannot perceive. His permeation on this subject is so poor, he can't see what's in front of his face. He's literally ignoring it. So he obviously has a lack of knowledge and permeation in that area. Although he may have, when he goes to work, he may have some permeation and knowledge, which is why he keeps his job. Now, when you go up to 6, disassociate, this is rejection. You disassociate from somebody. Like I gave you an example of somebody who doesn't want to be around Jews. He disassociates from them. Oh, you have a Jewish girlfriend? Well, no thanks. I don't want to be around you anymore. He disassociates. It's rejection. It's a type of thought. He's not denying it. He's rejecting it. You actually have to have a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more permeation to reject something than you do to deny it. Up from that is identify. Identify means equating. Now you have to realize, mathematics aside, no two things in the universe are the same. Now, let's say you take 2 electrons. You say, well, aren't they the same? No, they're in different places. So they're not equal. This one's here and this one's there. This one is in another galaxy and this one is part of your ham sandwich. See? They're not equated. So this is somebody who identifies. This is the guy who says, all women are selfish. That's equating. He clearly is not permeating women well and doesn't know much about them because not all of them are selfish. That is observable if you pay attention. But in order to pay attention, you have to permeate somewhat, and then you will get some knowledge about them. Up from that is level 4, which is associate. Now, this is what we call normal thought, right? So you're standing in line at the grocery store, and you see the guy in front of you who's wearing an LA Dodgers hat. You say, oh, are you a Dodgers fan? He says, yes. Are you a baseball fan? Oh, yeah, but I root for the Yankees. Oh, see, and they get in a discussion. That's association. That's all it is. You show me mine and I show you yours. And if you pay attention to people, you will hear them this way. You'll say something to them and they'll associate it. You say to the guy, yeah, I'm tired. I just came back from running a marathon. He says, oh, I used to run a marathon. See, right away he's associating with it. You didn't ask him if he ran a marathon, but he jumps in there because he's associating. So there's some permeation there and there's some knowledge. Now, up from that is differentiate. Differentiate means analyze. It means see that things are not the same. Smart people can do this. When you hear somebody say, all those Republicans are the same, that is patently not true. If you actually pay attention to them, you'll see. Some of them have beliefs about this and some of them don't. They're clearly not all the same. So someone who pays attention to Republicans and see that there are different types of Republicans and that each one of them is slightly different. He's analyzing. Analyze comes from the Greek word for loosen. Okay, so you're analyzing it, meaning you're separating them out. This is what you get from a detective. A detective has to be able to differentiate. He has to be able to say, well, this guy is a burglar. He has no history of violence, so we're not going to look at him for this murder. See, he's differentiating. He's not saying, oh, he's just a criminal, take him in. See, that's what a smart detective does. He differentiates. So, like if you read the Sherlock Holmes stories, he'll find a hair and he'll look at that hair under magnifying glass and he'll see, oh, this is the hair of a pig. That's a clue, see? The cops didn't even notice the hair. But he can solve that crime because he can differentiate. Up from that is duplicate. Most people do not know that learning is a process of duplication. The teacher says, this is how you solve quadratic equations. And a good student pays attention and he duplicates what the teacher does. He copies it down in his notebook and he learns. That is what learning is. It's not creative. It's duplicative. A person who's very smart will duplicate. Now, if you pay attention to people, you will see that very, very few people can duplicate. For example, if you go to podcasts, you see the guy has a quote. He puts a quote up on the screen, right? And he reads the quote. He rereads it. I mean, he misreads it. He will leave out 2 or 3 words, or he will change some words. He did not duplicate it. A person who can duplicate would read exactly what was in that quote, not something else. So the way you learn is by duplicating. And this is a high level skill, which is why most people have trouble with learning. Those people who win scholarships and graduate with honors know how to duplicate. Up from that is create. Create is inspiration. This is a different type of thinking. I had a friend, now deceased, who was a very famous jazz musician, invited me to his house, had a grand piano in his living room, so we're all sitting around drinking, eating chili. He comes out with a cigarette in his mouth, sits down and played for 20 minutes straight. No music, no recognizable songs, nobody made any requests. He just played. It was awesome. Awesome. He was just making it up as he went along. He never stopped. There was no beginning other than when he first hit the first key, and there was no end other than when he finished. He just played for 20 minutes. Right? Beautiful. Creation. That is what you get from a great artist. So, for example, if you watch Eric Clapton, he never plays the same solo twice. Parts of it will be similar, but he's basically making it up as he goes along. He's creative. So that is the highest level of thought. These are actual ways that people think. Now notice, at level 4, again, as we have seen in previous scales, there is a horizontal line, and above it we have sane, and below it we have insane. So thought at levels 5, 6, and 7 is insane thought, more so as you descend. Levels at 1, thought at 1, 2, and 3 is sane, okay, and gets more sane as you go up. So somebody who is very creative is going to be very sane in that area. Because remember, it's a specific scale. He may not be sane in every area, but in that area, he's really sane. So at 4, we have neutral. When you're associating, it's not sane and it's not insane. It's just associating. Oh, you like hot dogs? Yeah, I like hot dogs too. See? That's just associating. So that's what this is about. And if you watch people, you can see they're at certain levels, and this tells you what you can get from them. For example, if you cannot think at level 3, you cannot be a scientist or an engineer, period. Cannot be done. You won't pass the courses. And even if you cheat on the courses, you won't be able to do the job. Scientists and engineers differentiate continuously. They're continuously differentiating things. Okay, well, we have this material and we have this material. Which one shall we choose? See? And then look at the specifications for those materials. Okay, we don't want 2, we want 1. See? They differentiate. So this is a dead giveaway on how you want a person to function. So if I were hiring somebody to be a gardener, he doesn't really have to be at level 3. He just needs to know how to take care of the lawn and the flowers. There's not a lot of differentiation in there. So, or even if he's a very good gardener, he might be differentiating. And he would be very knowledgeable as gardeners go. Any questions? Felipe? Are you?
Questions by me? No, not at all.
You want me to keep going?
Sure, why not?
Okay. Chapter 6, the scale of identity. This is very important. The word identity comes from the Latin word idem, which means same. In the physical universe, no two things are the same. You might not be able to determine the difference between them, but even the fact that they're in different locations make them not the same. So this is a spiral scale, meaning level 1 and level 7 are easy to mix up. Level 7 says no identity, and level 1 says no identity. But the difference is, at level 1, there's no need for an identity. This guy doesn't need an identity, he's extroverted. And at level 7, no possible identity. This guy can't have any identity because he's oblivious. And if you try to elicit his identity, you'll just get gobbledygook. You get no response. He's oblivious. He's not up to the concept of having an identity. So you don't want to mistake 1 and 7. It's a catastrophic mistake. So if you talk to a guy and you say, well, what's your identity? He says, I have no identity. He might be at level 1 or he might be at 7. You have to pursue it. Is this guy oblivious or is he extroverted? If you just look at him, you'll see. If this guy is really in present time and space, he'll be paying attention and observing everything. And you can see then he's at level 1, not 7. The oblivious guy doesn't have a clue. He doesn't know what's going on. So it's quantum, meaning, again, there's nothing in between the levels. You're either at level 2 or you're at level 4. Nothing in between. And it's specific, meaning you have identity in various areas. You might have one identity as a spouse, a different level of identity as a club member, a different level of identity as a church member, whatever different specific text you are in, you might have different levels, and you probably will have different levels. Now, this is about perception. Identity is a function of perception. A person who's very perceptive will be high on the scale, and a person who's not perceptive will be low on the scale. So if you look on the right, the dotted vertical line, you see at the top, level 1, you have maximal perception. Notice it doesn't say infinite perception, maximal. As much perception as a person can have. And at 7, no perception. A person at level 7 has no perception. He doesn't have a clue. He's not paying attention. You could ask him, what color shirt am I wearing? He says, what? Shirt? Where's the shirt? Is there a shirt? See, he's oblivious. A normal person would look at you and say, well, it's a green shirt. See, he has some perception. So that's what this is measuring. As you go up the scale, it's more and more perception. Again, this is plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus. Level 1 is an inflow. No need for an identity is an inflow. You're withdrawn from that. You're saying, I don't need to have this identity. You're withdrawn. Level 2 is certain of identity. That is a big outflow. This guy says, yes, this is my identity. I am a Presbyterian. Big outflow. Below that is uncertain of identity. Well, obviously, if he becomes uncertain of identity, he's withdrawn from the area, which is an inflow. And then if he goes down, he goes into wrong identity, which is an outflow, an enemy. An enemy is on an outflow. When you have an enemy, look out, because he's on an outflow. He's going to shoot you or punch you or serve you with a lawsuit. And if you go down from there, you go to lost identity. This is not wrong identity. This is lost. This is the person at betrayal. He does not have the identity he once had. It's gone, and it's a withdrawal. He's withdrawn from it. He may not even remember that he had that identity. And below that, you get into disorientation, which is chaos. This person is disoriented. In case you haven't noticed, a person in disorientation is on an outflow. He will do wacky things. He'll knock down chairs, he'll yell, he'll tear up papers. He's on an outflow. It's just chaotic because he's not able to have an identity. It's just disorientation. And below that is no possible identity, which is oblivion, which is a big inflow. So let me go through these 7. Starting at 7, no possible identity, that's oblivion. Up from that, reverse the polarity to an outflow, you're disoriented. You're not inflowing anymore, you're outflowing, but you're chaotic. See, this guy is not oblivious, he's chaotic. That's the difference. Up from that is lost identity. This is an inflow. This person has lost whatever identity he had, it's gone, he's withdrawn from it. Up from that is wrong identity. So this is a wrong identity relative to the one he had, and he's on an outflow. So this is like the drunk who becomes an abolitionist. What is the word they used for people who were advocating for prohibition? A prohibitionist. He is no longer for alcohol. He's against alcohol. And, there was this lady called Carrie Nation who went around with an axe breaking liquor bottles. You can see her on photographs. She was an enemy of the alcohol world. And up from that is uncertain of identity. Well, this person is indecisive, isn't he? Because he's uncertain. He's withdrawn from it. Up from that is certain of identity. This guy knows who he is. And because he knows who he is, he's contrite. This is the guy who will give you money. So this guy, let's say he is a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. You go to him and say, give us money so we can run ads. He'll give you money. That is a type of contrition. See, He's sort of saying, oh, I'm contrite, so I will give you something for free without an exchange. That's what people at level 2 do. And at level 1, no need for an identity. This guy is extroverted. So let's go the other way. So you have a single man about town, right? And he dates pretty girls, takes them out on dates. So he's extroverted. So he looks at this girl and says, nah, she's not for me. Looks at another girl, oh yeah, that's a pretty girl, I'm gonna talk to her. See, he's extroverted. He's paying attention. Well, then when he falls in love with Mary Lou, he says, Mary Lou, you're the girl for me. He's now certain of identity. He's Mary Lou's beau. He's not extroverted. He's not looking at all these other women now. He's only looking at Mary Lou. See, that's less perception. Now, if he becomes uncertain, well, I don't know if I want to go out with Mary Lou, he goes down to level 3, uncertain of identity. Am I really Mary Lou's beau? Is that really who I am? See, he's uncertain of his identity. And then he might say, nah, I'm not. And he breaks up with her, says, I don't want to go out with you anymore. See, that's kind of an act of an enemy, right? She's very offended by that. That's an outflow. And he says, I don't want to have anything to do with her anymore. See, he has gone from being uncertain to being certain that he is not the guy for her. Now, if he continues down this, he'll go to lost identity, which means he might not even remember Mary Lou. You might say, you bump into this guy and say, oh, Joe, how you doing? How's Mary Lou? He says, Mary Lou? I don't know anybody named Mary Lou. Who's that? Don't you remember your girlfriend, Mary? I don't have any girlfriend named Mary Lou. This happens. Below that is disorientation. This guy is disoriented. He doesn't know what the hell is going on. You say to him, we're going to have a party. Wouldn't you like to come over? There's going to be a lot of pretty girls there. He says, nah, I don't think I want to go. See, he's at level 6. He's disoriented. He doesn't even know if he wants to meet women. And then if he goes down to another level, he goes into no possible identity. This guy is just oblivious of the whole thing. You know, he's just out to lunch. He has no perception. So when Lana Turner walks by, he doesn't even notice her. So that's what the scale is about. And it aligns with the scale of allegiance, which is the group manifestation of the scale, which is an individual manifestation. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay, you want me to keep going on?
Sure, why not?
Okay. The scale of evaluation. The scale of evaluation is an extremely volatile scale. If you just watch people, you can watch them go up and down the scale in a matter of minutes. The opposite extreme would be like the scale of basic purposes, where more than 90% of humans spent an entire lifetime at one level of that scale. That is an extremely persistent trait. This is the opposite. It's a volatile trait. So this is a linear scale, meaning there's no confusion between level 1 and 7. They're completely different. You can't make that mistake. It's a gradual scale, meaning there are gradations in between. So you can be at level 3, you can be at level 2.5, you can be at level 2, you can be at level 1.5, etc., 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So you will watch the person morph gradually from one level into the next. It is not a quantum leap. It is a gradation. Then you get to specific, this is a specific scale. It has to have a context. What are we evaluating? He might be at one level regarding baseball, another level regarding hockey, another level regarding soccer. So you say to him, what do you think of baseball? He says, oh, I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. That guy is at level 1 on the scale. For baseball, well, what do you think of hockey? Don't care for it. Don't watch it. Just doesn't pay attention to me. See, he's not condemning it, which would be level 7. He's just discouraging it. That's level 5. Well, what do you think of football? Well, now football, yeah, I like football, I like football. So that's like level 3, acceptance. He accepts it. So you can watch a person go through this. So let's say you have a friend from Africa. He's never seen a baseball game. He's never been in a baseball game. He doesn't know anything about it. So he shows up and you say to him, I've got an extra ticket for this baseball game. Why don't you come along with us and you can see what it's like? He says, okay. So now you all go to the baseball game. When he walks in, he's at level 4, neutral. Everyone enters the scale at level 4, impartiality. When he walks into the baseball stadium, he's impartial. He has no idea at all. So now, 15 minutes into the game, you turn to him and you say, what do you think of this? He might say, all right, I can see why people would like this. He's gone up to level 3. He might say, why would anybody want to watch this? He's gone down to level 5. You see? Now, you ask him an hour later, he's gone up to 3, you ask him an hour later, well, what did you think? He says, yeah, this is great. He's at level 2. He's agreeing with it. He's unanimous with you and your friends that this is a good thing. See, he's gone from level 4 to 3 to 2. So this is very easy to watch, and it's very easy and important to do, because if somebody tells you that he hates something, that's level 7. So you say, you're a good-looking guy. Let me introduce you to some girls I know. Oh, no, I don't like women. I don't go around women. Women are bad. Can't trust them. He's at level 7. He's condemning them. See? So if you're smart, you'll say, okay, and just drop it. You're not going to try to change his mind. That's his level. See? Or if you say to a guy, we're going to a party, there's going to be a lot of pretty girls who want to come along, he might say, okay, that's good. And he goes along and he gets right into the flow. See, he might have been at 3 when you asked him. So this is very useful and very simple, and it's not hard to diagnose at all. So level 7, condemnation, is loathing. Level 6, invalidation, is refutation. Level 5, discouragement, is disagreement. Level 4, neutrality, is impartiality. Level 3, acceptance, is condoning. Level 2 is unanimity, which is agreement. And level 1 is encouragement, which is avidity. So this is a scale of love and hate. You say, what do you think of cats? He says, oh, I love cats. This guy is at level 1 on this scale regarding cats, which is love. He's avid about cats. Or if you say to another guy, what do you think of cats? Can't stand cats. Get them away from me. I don't like them. He's at level 7. He condemns them. He hates them. So this is a scale of love and hate. As you go further up, there's more love. As you go further down, there's less love and more hate. So this is really useful in figuring out where somebody stands so you know how to deal with them. If you listen to a guy say, you're not talking to him, you're just hearing him, he says, oh, I would never want to go fishing. What a boring thing. Why would anybody want to go fishing? Don't ask him to go fishing. He doesn't like it. You've already figured out he's at probably level 6 invalidation. See, he's invalidating it. So don't ask him to go fishing. You might ask him to go to a rodeo or to a movie, see? So if you pay attention to people, you can figure out where they are on this scale, and it sort of tells you what to do. If you are, for example, I had a girlfriend once who I found out after many years was distinctly anti-Christian. I had no idea. But she was at probably level 6, invalidation of Christians. So I just didn't broach the subject. I didn't talk about it. I knew she was there. Why would I open Pandora's box? No point in doing that. So that was like an area where I knew I wasn't going to go with that person. Any questions?
No questions at all.
Okay.
We'll resume these evaluations of Septemics the following week with Jim Marshall, who's introduced to us a concept that can make breakthroughs regarding your place in this world and how you feel about yourself that can go past what you might have got in traditional therapy. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the More Than Therapy podcast, where you get interesting perspectives like Jim Marshall's Septemics, which will bring to you more chapters based on this wonderful book next week. Jim, tell them how to get your book.
Okay. The book is available wherever books are sold. But I would invite you to my website, which is septemics.com, Septemics, where you can see what many readers have said about it, what many journalists have written about it, what the reviews are. You can read sections of the book itself. And there's even a pre-recorded introduction to Septemics that explains to you on an audio what it's about, as if you are a new person. Now, if you do that, then you can easily find it at Amazon or wherever you want. If you go through the website, you're probably going to want to buy the book because it's very clear.
Indeed, indeed. We'll meet with Mr. Jim Marshall next week regarding learning more about Septemics. Until then, be well and continue to be great.